This is just a casual talk made without preparations or notes. It's Wednesday, the day after Valentine's Day of 2023. And it's Matt Curry in Tacoma, Washington. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I'm 62 years old. I used to have a postcard from my father, who was married to my mother for about 10 years, the first 6 years of my life. I lived in a place called Squirrel Hill, which was a Jewish community center, a Jewish community Holocaust survivors. I've seen the tattoos, and my first ear doctor was in Auschwitz as a little boy. Busis was his name. He was the director of Holocaust survivors of Allegheny County. Anyway, I used to have a postcard from Russia to my father written in Russian. I never asked him about it, and I don't have it anymore, but I know he was fluent, very fluent in French. He used to go to France and lecture in French. He lectured on 5 continents and published a number of books. It's difficult for people who have seen the mess made of my name and reputation by Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, whose church was in Squirrel Hill. And the opportunism of the King Crimson Band, as Mr. Rogers called them in a private letter to me, towards my father. It's difficult for them, a person seeing through the lens of me, to appreciate what a distinguished man he was. He was chair of philosophy education at the University of Pittsburgh. He was a Peace Corps leader in Africa. He was called a hero by the Northeast regional director of Amnesty International, who took classes with him. He served on the CVL 30, the same as George Bush, as a lieutenant in the Navy. They were some 500 days out on the oceans in the largest naval battles in human history. Well, he grew up in Iowa. He was a rambunctious man. He told stories of great humor and was talented. I saw him sing and dance. He was spontaneous. He saw the Beatles at an underground club before they were Oz. He thought they were a good bunch of bums. You know, he was an intellectual, building from the GI Bill, hopefully a future of the sort that the Kennedy days saw as very promising, when people believed, maybe trusted, America had potential to be a peaceful, reputable, admirable society that people looked up to and turned to for cultural assistance. Now, I know that our reputation has fallen by the wayside, but we still have to depend on that hope and work towards it as best as we can. But in 1966, although JFK had been murdered, there was still hope in the air. The civil rights movement was still being led by Martin Luther King. And this was when I Love Sarah Saran turned up on my garage doors. You got that right, 1966. It was a picture Kodak dated 1966 that I sent to Jim Mars. And suddenly his feedback, he always told me, "Oh, I received your letter. Oh, I received your letter." Suddenly his feedback was like, "I'm not sure I got that, Mac." Well, he danced at the Carousel Club the night before Kennedy was killed, Jack Ruby's club. So if he was confiscating particularly fine material, keeping my Zapruder's movie brought in abundant. There's some. I mean, it was yanked out of my grasp by people claiming that the script was worth money because it was about murdering John Lennon. Now, why would I, the son of a naval officer, suddenly be the object of a hideous and vicious vendetta in league with Holocaust survivors in Israel by a Japanese supposed widow? Well, we know that the script was about killing JFK and was promoted recently by Yoko Ono's Confederacy with Bob Dylan by the murder of Seriously Kennedy. So logic goes against the claim that this was about John Lennon. It was written by John Lennon who pulled a Houdini. It's about jurisdiction by a Hollywood mob organized by the Axis behind the scenes, which is what all my research confirms. He planned a makeover through our media of a Houdini operation, convincing us that this tragedy happened by script. And of course, they have the iron claw of Reagan's involvement. So you can't question it. But you can't question anything that comes to the rescue of Adolf Hitler if it's effective. They refuse to allow questions. So the evidence that it is, in fact, Hitler's revenge is the way that the viciousness of people like Munir and Zappa towards the idea of questioning any of it. They did it under the counter. They did it on the sly. They did it libelously. And they painted I Love Sarah Saran on my garage door in 1966. Now, who painted it there? Well, my neighbor, Pally Peckham, used to put lime out there, endangered us. And he cut off ants' heads and burned them with magnifying glass. Pally is like Palestinian. Peckham's father was in vivisection. He took me to see monkeys who pituitary gland research. And those poor monkeys, but they had a white child they were planning to use for vivisection. They used me because my birthday was October 20th, 6 months from Hitler. It's right in the script. And they gave me, the Ford brothers gave me 1984 as the first 4 digits of my Social Security card. And Yoko Ono says it's a test of character. It's not a test of character. It was earmarking a child. So there was a Siamese cat that nobody could tame and ended up freezing to death. But the boys who attacked me, Casper, had reptilian eyes, like, Asian women. And one of them grabbed me in a headlock and said, I'm going to squeeze your head so hard your nose will pop off. So we had this wildcat thing going on. We're supposed to trust Biden's judgment when he promotes the NAACP by saying equity pussy ball gives the black man the girl who squeezes his head so hard his nose will pop off. Ha, 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 ha. To promote Yoko Ono's grudge about Lennon. They do this when Midori Goto was in the UN at the time. She was supposedly a peace ambassador. And they used the neuroplasm, a guy named Wattenmaker. What kind of name is that? There was a Frankenstein living nearby him, according to the East Liberty Telephone Directory of 1967 or so. You get the Van de Graaff generator ideas. Are they after my brain for an experiment? I don't know, but Wattenmaker took me to see the incredible two-headed transplant, which has a line, I got to teach us more on how to walk. One head says to the other. This is a cycloptic mindset that's being imposed through incredible two-headed transplant from the Axis through Hollywood with the help of people like Clint Eastwood on the United States. The federal government is playing cagey, but they threatened us with a nuke. They're letting a New York widow threaten the entire United States. The children of Seattle were threatened by the Seattle multicultural imbeciles. with a nuclear attack, as though it was settling scores for the transvestites. And all of Trumpy Toon's armies in places like St. Louis are, Ringo, yeah, about it. That's just the reality. And Polly Peckham used to go, me, because he was imitating a donkey. And he'd make everybody laugh, me. He asked me what were the lines of the inner light, you know. I he had been teaching me swear words, and I was like, I don't know, what was it? Was one of these four-letter words, you know? He's like, no, that's not the inner light. So they were creepy people. And across the street, before there was a Jewish community center, there were two garages, and the children of the neighborhood were organized they said they were window weights. They were these big metal things, and told to bang holes in the wall. And so we cleared the two garages, and the Jewish community center now stands there. It was um, somebody's idea of using child labor to help build the Jewish community center. Now, Pino Gabriel goes, I need someone to believe in, someone to trust, and all the stupids think that it's actually true. It's on a record where he glorifies himself as a New York rapist. This is the man who accused me of being aggressive, had me castrated and given Parkinson's because I left a girl alone, left her a virgin. He glorifies himself as a New York rapist, comes up with this pussy bucket, and calls himself Amnesty International. So, he's a wild man, but he knows how to pinch the nerve of what people yearn for. Well, Sam, were given some cats, and one of them was named Serendipity. Saren is a nerve agent, right? These people were gassed in Auschwitz. And in Dachau, Sobibor, the people from the trades were met in the concentration camps with violinists. Literally, you can see these pictures in the web. And this is the whole mockery that Sean Lennon and Tony Levin and Donald Trump have made of the generation that they betrayed. The Beatles were these Sobibor violinists who will take you away. And that is literally the metaphor system in their minds when they pulled this whole thing. All of it is coming from them. And they say that it's coming out from a childhood that brutalized. They've insulted every man, woman, and child on earth by denying the evidence. Insult. And what happens? The Palestinians, they say, go tell the Palestinians your crybaby story, right? Polly Peckham, if you let the Palestinians go, they'll be pecking all the girls. Well, the Palestinians are Muslim. They say we're not like that. We're not so. They've driven a wedge, right? We're not like that. Not rather than say we don't do things that way, they say do it to someone else. The 1984 mentality. We're going to do it to someone else. It's my turn, right? So I found this all out by basically blending in with the situation. What the hell is going on with these people? They tore down Asbury Methodist Church across the street from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. I liked going to that church and singing Michael Roosevelt Ashore and so forth. But they built a public library. So the humanists, my father was a humanist, has supplanted the church. And Mr. Rogers used to have a 74 bus stop outside his church. And the letters say 74 is the best number. That's where this Jewish Virgin Leslie, the tiny-haired girl, would sit every day waiting to transfer buses on her way home from Ellis, where she was a valedictorian. I met her at the governor's school. So they were going to make mincemeat of this rival, right, through a nerve implant. Because the humanist is more than someone who questions the dogma of an organized religion. He must be seen as the enemy within, harboring the Satan within. So they put it in neuroplasm, right? And they index me to the nuclear bomb with this dude Wattenmaker. Meanwhile, these poachers rip us off for trillions of dollars to build these senseless weapons. And they make it out to be me. I'm the one who's been saying that every minute of every day all along. My father used to call me when he read me in the paper. I was agreeing with that better before I even saw your name, son. True. So they have this ridiculous burden of stuff about it's from Alpha Centauri. You can't talk any sense to them. They refuse. They, you know, you're contradicting the black man. That it's from Alpha Centauri. I had nothing to do with anything that had anything to do with Lenin. Nothing. Zero. Had nothing to do with it. But they use this double cross as a hexagram. So they say Kennedy, when he was shot, who should appear outside the Dallas Police Department when the death cab for cutie pulls out, right? We're holding Oswald's body, taking it to the morgue. Yeah, then there's a nuclear bunker. It's this Japanese guy who's following around. There's a Japanese little boy in Dealey Plaza photographed the next day. He's following Jack Ruby around all the time. Jack Ruby was a pornographer. All this stuff shows up in Japanese pornography. It's like a hustle game. They think, if you look at pornography, you're as immoral as we are. Well, people who look at pornography aren't the ones putting out Venus flytraps and poisoning them. But it's not an appropriate thing to believe these people, Morley. There's nothing wrong with sitting down and saying the child in the womb is entitled to life. There's nothing wrong with that argument. It's not an evil argument. It's a belief in the forces of creation and the union of mom and dad, as Putin likes to put it. It's nothing wrong with that. There's something wrong with believing people who would pull this hustle. That's a nightmare joke on what they call the nature of reality, just a laugh on everybody, a slap in the face because they resent what was done to them in World War II. And saying you're going to believe in them, you're going to trust somebody who glorifies himself as a New York rapist and kills Kennedy. To hell with Peter Gabriel. And if the British can't get it together to do better than that, to hell with the British. Okay, so back in 1966, I was 5 years old. They had this whole thing mapped out and planned when I was already 5 years old. They didn't ask me when they tore down the Asbury Methodist Church. I would have said I like going there and singing Michael Row the Boat Ashore. Across the street from this was a newsstand. Charmingly enough, Noam Chomsky associated those years with a New York newsstand. Here I am as survivors of the Holocaust survivor community. Noam Chomsky is notorious, and the letters start coming from Woods Hole, where he has his Z magazine. So Chomsky and Trumpy Tune were in cahoots all along, and they don't like American exceptionalism. They started bombing Vietnam rather than allow our diplomats to reconcile cultures. So they would have a ton of animosity coming from foreign worlds, so they could make America a siege mentality against forces we have unleashed against ourselves, presumably. Really, it's this incredible two-headed transplant making enemies for us. You guys really need to think it through because you're being played for genuine stupids.